Know that music. This is James Moore. You are listening to solar-powered KRUU-FM, and we are broadcasting from, decidedly almost sunny today. It's kind of mid-sunny, let's put it that way, as we speak. We're live in the studio. Welcome to City Business. This is your opportunity to get caught up on the latest haps from City Hall, and we bring it to you after each City Council meeting the following Tuesday lunchtime, Thursday dinner time, 6:30 p.m., or the following Monday breakfast time. And I'm hearing from a little bird that it weren't too much of a long meeting there. And welcome to the airwaves, FMC, in the house with Jason and all the good people there. And, of course, 4th Ward City Council person, Michael Halley. Michael, how are you doing?
Good. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. So you survived the Blue Zone Winery 5 situation there?
Yeah. We had wine at 5 yesterday. So you're right. We had a relatively short agenda for a regular meeting, February 9th City Council meeting. So I want to start with the Blue Zone site visit because
sounds great.
It's kind of interesting. So as you've heard, for about 2.5 years, actually a little longer, but 2.5 years in earnest, the city, the community, not just the city as a government, but the community in general, has been working towards this Blue Zones community designation. There was no grant funding involved, though we did have a facilitator, Jenny Weber, from Des Moines, who was instrumental. Essentially, couldn't have done it without her.
Okay.
And it was all volunteer efforts, and essentially, Blue Zones, just to back up a bit, you had interviewed Dan Buettner's brother.
Right. On the studio, I think Sheriff Fusco Johnson interviewed Dan. And you can explain. We interviewed Nick, who was in town, but go ahead.
So Nick was here. So Dan, and Nick was kind of part of this, but Dan is a National Geographic explorer and writer, and he had traveled around the world and was looking for cultures that had not just longevity, but people living into their hundreds who were happy, healthy, and just full of life, and found these 5 communities around the world that had a kind of a disproportionate number of octarians. Is that the right word?
Those would be 80-year-olds.
Oh, yeah, no. These would be
Centarians or something, I don't know.
Not centaurs.
Centivos, not centaurs.
No.
But elderly of health.
Yes.
Healthfully elderly.
Yes,
elderly.
Living long and robust lives. All right, and then they basically said, what are the commonalities here? And they came up with these Power 9 principles, these 9 commonalities. And I find the Power 9 to be very profound because it bridges the gap between not just lifestyle. So some of the lifestyle similarities they found was that they had a plant-based diet for the most part, that they had downtime.
Including seafood, though, I think that was...
Yeah, a little bit in some of the cultures, not all, but meat was not part of even the daily diet. And if it was a small portion, but definitely not 3 meals a day of meat. Having downtime, connecting with family, but then getting into what I would almost call the spiritual aspect of knowing the purpose. Like, how many of us wake up in the morning and say, I know why I'm alive? And these people had that. They felt that they had that. And a lot of it was family. Mm-hmm. I'm here to... one gentleman would walk down the lane to get the milk that was delivered, or the bread, every day. And he felt that he had to do that for the family. So he got up early, and he walked down and he got it, and he brought it in before the rest of the family woke up. And that was, like, for him, very small and very specific purpose that he had to wake up when he did. But just in a larger sense, like, I'm here to contribute to whatever it is. And so they tried to turn this into a program. I say try because I feel like it's a work in progress. And the people who came would admit that as well. Early on, the Blue Zones initiative was more or less a checklist. And what they did was they tried to align the Power 9 principles with evidence-based changes that could be made, mostly in the physical environment. The thought is, if you make the healthy choice the easy choice, then people will move in that direction. A simple example, at a grocery store, oftentimes in the aisles is a bunch of junk food. You've got candy bars, maybe you have soda. So if a grocery store was interested in becoming Blue Zone designated, they would ask them to make at least one aisle, if not more, to have healthier options. So fresh fruit, water, and maybe granola bars instead of candy bars. So if you go to our local Hy-Vee, you'll see an aisle like that. If you go to the Everybody's Food, they both participated, there's an aisle like that. What they want is to then track sales to see if putting the healthier food and around the store, putting it at that eye level instead of at the bottom of the shelf or the top, and putting it at the end of the aisles are very popular places where people really stop and look to see what's on there. What if you put the healthier items there? Will that increase sales? Will that change people's behavior? And there's some evidence that it does. So a lot of the changes were things like that. And for the community policy, if you make walking and biking easier, people are more likely to do it. A lot of it's common sense. But having gone through getting my workplace designated and several restaurants and the community policy, those are the things I worked on for this project. There were times of frustration where you felt like you had a top-down approach, yet somebody somewhere was saying, oh, this is a good thing, and you should adopt it. And maybe it doesn't totally fit your community, or maybe you're already doing something very similar, but
it doesn't count.
It doesn't count, mm-hmm. Exactly. And there was those frustrations, and they listened. And I was talking to the lady who does the restaurant portion, and she said, I said, you should leave some room, and ideally would be some room for creativity. You give a goal, but then let the organizations decide how to reach it, and you might be surprised. She said the new pledge includes that. So they are moving, I think, in that direction.
Cool.
So I did talk to Mr. Butner. He wants to have a longer conversation with me because, having worked in so many different areas, they're very interested to hear feedback from people who were, quote unquote, in the trenches. Well, I was a little concerned that this last piece of the puzzle, we did everything. We got all the grocery stores we needed. We got the schools. We got the businesses. We got the restaurants. We did the community policy. And then they come and they do a site visit, and they just want to kind of see cross-section.
That's what just happened.
That's what just happened.
And it's still happening, maybe.
Yeah, they're actually at the university. Right now, Tuesday, they're at the university, and that'll be their last tour. Because the university was designated as actually as a work site rather than a school. But they're taking like a 2-hour tour because it's very unique. I told them you're really going to enjoy the university. You won't find one like that anywhere. I thought perhaps that it would be, the ladies with their hair up in a bun and they're going to check off and they're going to be like, I don't know if you did that right. They're not. They're enjoying seeing our community. It's not so much a checking off as it is celebrating what we've done and getting feedback. So I sat in on 3 of the restaurant visits, 3 of the 4, and it was a lot of fun. So I'm sitting at, for an example, at Green Gourmet, and Lee, the owner, she's beyond Blue Zones. So she's trying to explain to them that she sells okra, even though she makes no money off of it because it's so healthy and it takes so long to prepare that she can't make a profit, but she includes it several days a week because she cares about the health of her customers. She's talking about this cold-pressed hemp oil she wants to get in to replace the fish because it's a healthier source of omegas. She's talking about a juicer that has no blades. It's a cold-pressed juicer. I mean, she's talking about alkaline water. She's talking about Himalayan sea salt and things that it's not anywhere on their checklist. Because that's the space she's in, and it's similar to some of the other restaurants. They're just
I love it.
In a different direction, but they listened, and so the Blue Zone, the new checklist includes local foods. You get points for doing local foods. Well, that's something a lot of our restaurants in town, the locally owned ones, emphasize.
And growing part of it with the distribution that Jan Swinton and other people are working on.
So they're really impressed, and the Wine at 5, which you're referring to, is.
I just get a kick out of that.
It is.
I'm not a drinking guy. So it's interesting as a health thing to do it, but obviously it's considered healthy and in balance and for many, many people.
Yeah, and the thing is, it doesn't require the alcohol. It's more about the socializing, having the downtime at the end of the workday. But we did have wine, and it was at Revelations, and it was a great chance to hear from the people who've been working on this here locally.
By the way, I think it's Betsy Howland's birthday today. So
that's right.
If you're out there, Betsy, happy birthday. You've done a lot of great light and love and to the community. So good on you. Done a lot of volunteering too. But so wine at Revelations.
Yeah, and then I went to my city council meeting after. And now I'm not much of a drinker. I'm what you call a lightweight, and we were discussing it later. Like, why the glasses were so big? That's, I think, what it was. So I decided that it would be prudent not to speak much at the council meeting. I think I said a couple sentences, and that was about as much as I wanted to because of the wine. So,
well, my sister is. I know wine affects people differently, but it'd be like if she smelled it, she's asleep because she works so hard all the time too. So wine out. So, but by the way, we're speaking with Michael Halley. This is James Moore. This is City Business. Jason Strong in the house. FMC. Always good to see those guys doing such great work. We got some Fairfest coming down the pike as we work. Some great footage from last year. Even got that drone stuff up now from on the website if you want to see the crowds from the skies. Kind of fun. I don't know if that'll ever happen again, but we are City Businessifying here, and we will get to City Business. We're just talking about this aspect of it. And Nick was a great, you can listen to the interview we did if you want. It was a nice chat with him, he and his brother, and he does seem very open and very interested in feedback and how it's going in a very kind of interactive way. I think when you start these kind of projects, when you build them, building the pieces seems sort of top-down-ish as you're trying to figure out what to include and what not. So it's great to have that living part because this really is a living approach, isn't it?
Yes. And this next part, now that we're done with this, about 30 days from now, we should hear back that we are designated Blue Zones community.
Dun.
But we're not done. We get to continue to work with Jenny, the consultant, throughout the end of this year. So we have her for the rest of 2015. And we get to make our own goals. We get to go in our own direction. And this is the part I'm very excited about. You mentioned top-down. And this program to an extent is top-down. I'm interested in the bottom-up. I'm interested in what are the needs and the issues of our community. Base. Well, right now, the two that are on my mind, I don't want to get into it too much, but the mental health, as we know, is a big one. And food insecurity is an issue that has been on my mind a lot lately. I volunteered last week with the young professionals for a little program called Carry On Bags. Carry On Bags is puts together food bags for kids to take home over the weekend so that they know they have food to eat. And to think that there are kids who otherwise wouldn't in our community is very upsetting. And we're first world nation. We don't have infrastructure problems or no government, like some of these nations that we used to see on TV where the starving kids need our help. So to know that there were about 300 a week who need this, we packed almost 1,000 bags for 3 weeks. So that comes down to 330 some a week who need these bags it's a disturbing trend. And I don't know if this is part of a larger issue, economic issue. There's a failure somewhere in our system when this starts happening. So I don't know what the solution is either, but it's something that I intend to put my attention on. And it's coming more to the surface, I would say. Our public health on the county level is very aware of food insecurity. She was the one who brought it to my attention last year. I don't think it hit home until I was there, putting applesauce and peanut butter and granola bars in a bag for a child just so he or she would eat. The school lunch program, they have to extend it over the summer. They have to continue to do free lunches over the summer because the kids who need those free lunches, I don't know what their parents or their caregivers are doing or not doing, but they're failing their kids and by not feeding them. And so then the schools are picking up the slack. Hy-Vee donates, I think, to the carry-on bags. So food shelter, we're all trying to pick up the slack there. But what's going on? What is this? Is this an economic issue? It's becoming more prevalent in rural communities in Iowa.
Well, I think 30% of our housing, right, when they did that study, 30% are under, in poverty level, 30% of our housing, people that own houses on $20,000 a year. I mean, so I don't know the thing is, I don't know either, but if parents, to assume parents are failing their kids because they're not able to work and get paid enough to be able to provide, does get back to a few things that I don't know if it's exactly parents or, minimum wage issues and all those other things. And I know you can't fix everything with one magic wand, but to see the effect that you're talking about means that, what can we do?
Well, and my family grew up poor. My parents were good at making kids, but not good at making money. And so we had food stamps and all sorts of free lunch program, and I never went hungry. They were at least worked enough for that to happen. And I don't know if the economy has changed. I mean, there were 7 of us and 2 parents. And so
no, it's very much changed. I mean, in those days, well, not quite. I'm older than you. One parent 70s, could 80s. Work. One parent could work for a while, but I mean, wages haven't increased in 30 years. So that's, food has gone up. Wages haven't, the math. But again, that is the reality that you're talking about is addressing it and looking at it and then mobilizing. So food insecurity. And that's one of those things that speaking to you and the other thing that you mentioned?
Mental health.
Mental health.
Yeah. Those seem to be, I think, just big red flag issues in our time.
Iowa with suicides, not only locally, but as a state, looking at some of the statistics. And of course, we have our Mental Health Matters program now the last few months, and some address of these issues critical. So great. Good.
Yeah, it needs to be addressed more. Like the crisis or the crisis home. Mm-hmm. Okay, it didn't work out for that particular property on Burlington. There wasn't sufficient parking, etc. But it should exist somewhere because the people who are in crisis who don't need a hospitalization, they don't need to be arrested. They need somebody, and during an off hour when the mental health professional isn't available, it's a no-brainer. Mm-hmm. It's who knows what that could have done for prevention if people who were in need could have gotten them help.
And the thing is, it's certainly like not like that area or issue is becoming less.
No,
I mean the trend is not that. Yep. So the fact that piece drops out is going to push or squeeze somewhere. I mean, hopefully the trends can change. Yeah. But anyway, interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Where's that at?
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I assume they're just still looking for properties, but I don't know who they, when I say they, are. I know there was a coalition of mental health experts and such, but I don't know if the original organization who was, I can't remember the name of them, Temco. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Temco is still actively looking. I don't know if they had a loss, if they haven't sold the property. I'm not sure what's going on.
I wonder, of course, how much that gets back to what funding is being provided, either locally, state, or nationally, because that also affects whether people are able to build and be compensated, et cetera.
Well, on a state level, it seems that they're cutting funding for mental health. They want to close down the Mount Pleasant clinic, and someone was saying something odd that there are some, I don't know if it's politicians or policymakers who are wanting elder care facilities to double as mental health facilities. So people who have a mental health disability would then get care through what are traditionally elder care facilities. And this person who manages one said that a low stimulation environment is not helpful to their needs. So Ken Daly is another person who's seeing the income gap more clearly. You look at a median or average income for our community, it looks fine, but the more well-to-do people are skewing those numbers, and the growing people in poverty are falling through the cracks. And I'm not trying to put a parent down by saying they're failing. I'd say our entire system is failing if our kids are going hungry. We build a government and we build an economy to protect and to enable people to prosper. I mean, that's the entire reason this whole system exists. And when your children aren't eating, that's a red flag. It's a big red flag. So that's some of the stuff that I hope that we can address. It's fun to say, let's make healthier people even healthier, but I say, let's get our kids fed.
Well, somebody called after hearing the interview and said the well mark, or with the path Healthways marker that they're using is a series of. It's not just about health, because Iowa's gotten a little better with their obesity rates, and there's been some movement. But if you look at the standards that they're using, the sections, they cover a wider variety than just health. It's not just what you traditionally think of as physical health, but it's a wider measure. And I explained that, even on that one, Iowa has come up. I mean, the idea was to try to make number one in the state. I know it's gone up from in the top 10, I think, now, 10. which is still pretty good. Yeah. But it's also that I don't know that exact standard for measuring health except by doing either obesity or certain hospital things like that. But so that's why if you look at, listener, if you get a chance, you can just Google what those 9, 7, 8, whatever those are, areas that are factored into what makes somebody in this category anyway rise up. And it's a number of areas. They're all interesting, but it's slightly different than only health.
Yeah, it's access is another measurement, access to healthcare. There are a lot of them.
Anyway, what about city council?
All right, city council, moving on to the lighter subject. We approved some tax abatements for a couple properties that are being developed on 602 and 604 East Adams. It's over by the old hospital. Local couple are putting in a couple of duplexes, so 2 duplexes, which add 4 units to our housing stock. So,
how many duplexes does it take to screw in a light bulb? Sorry, I'm adding a little brevity.
There we go.
Schmevity. Okay.
All right, we approved a change order. It's the second and maybe final change order for the pool project. Now, the new outdoor pool. There were, after a first change order, which most of it was state mandated, adding restrooms, etc., we still had about $12,000 in contingency, and now we're nearing the end of the project, the last few months of it, and one last bid alternate that was wanted were some umbrella structures to provide shade. And
we could use them for Fairfest.
Well, they cost about $12,000, but then Derek Wolfcool said, well, if we take out some of these benches, save about 8, and then we add those back in and spend 4. So we're spending about 4 of the 12 to get these shade structures back in there. So that'll just make it more pleasant when you're sitting there.
It's festive.
For a guy like me, if I go out midday in the summer, I'm toasted in 20 minutes if I don't wear sunscreen. So I appreciate shade. I'm sure there are a lot of pale skins out there like yourself.
Also looks like those little tropical drinks.
There you go. All right. We also
I was trying to hula for the camera. I can't hula. Sorry.
We approved the plan, specifications, and form of contract for the gym portion.
Oh, sorry. Yes.
Yep. So that just
say that again. I think I was talking over you.
Approved the plan, specification, and form of contract for the community recreation center gym portion. So we're actually going to get the bids back. Today's Tuesday, so it'll be Thursday. All right. And then a week from now, the task force, who's been working on this for so long, all the volunteer citizens have been working on this, will meet and look at the bids. Did they come in favorably, which means under the estimates? Did they come in higher than that? We just have to
or unfavorably.
Unfavorably. Yeah. So we'll see. Knocking on some wood. Hope it'll all turn out. We authorized engineering for the final improvements on Kirkwood Avenue. Kirkwood is one of 4 streets in town where they're considered major thoroughfares. Is that the right word? The feds give us money. They give us 80% of the cost to fix those streets. So
gotcha. Kirkwood
has been fixed all the way down except for the very west side, which is about a block and a half around where it meets up with 9th Street. So we're going to do that last bit. So we approved the engineering contract with French Reniker, our local engineering company, to move forward on that. We had nothing from the mayor, nothing from the city attorney, but we did have a couple of committee reports. Ways and Means. I want to see if I can get this to open.
Nothing from the city wino? Sorry, I couldn't resist.
Who's the city wino?
That's you, man.
Oh, yes.
The wino at 5.
I was quiet. Trust me.
But actually, while you're looking quickly, I wanted to ask a question that came up about the way the snow is removed from the streets, because we had one of those snows that came late. It was almost hard for me getting back by the time I came. But I think people misunderstand just the regular way it's done. Obviously, there may be exceptions for emergency, but I mean, I just want, is the understanding correct that the trucks start happening? First of all, there are trucks. There was this weird rumor that there aren't plows anymore, or that they're hired out or something, so I want to clear that up. But also that they basically start early-ish in the morning, so if it is one of those heavier snows overnight, it may be that it's a little bit whatever. But just do you know how that works?
Yeah, city-owned snow plows. And we hire, and we have our own staff to drive them. But typically, if it's an ongoing snow, they'll start at 5 a.m. and they'll have every street in town cleared by around 11 a.m. Now they will be out,
and obviously, if it's snowing through that, then it gets trickier.
Yeah, but they try to stay on top of it. If it depends the type of snowfall it is. If it's coming down faster, obviously it's harder. But Highway 1 through town, so South Main and North 2nd, that's cleared by the DOT.
Okay,
so that one you can always rely on.
Right,
but Burlington no longer, because that's a city street rather than, it's not a DOT street anymore. But that's where the city crews will start. They'll clear Burlington, and they'll just branch out from there until they get them all. But that's typically how it's done.
Okay.
All right, so Ways and Means.
1 minute left. So.
Proposed their local option sales tax allocations. This would be for the 2015-16 fiscal year, which starts in July. Fairfield is on there.
Great.
I'm not going to read them out, so I'll just read the organizations, and you can read it off the air. Art Walk, the Italian Fest, Live on the Square, Volunteer Center, Fairfest, the Agency on Aging, which is a senior center, Lord's Cupboard. They asked for a little, and they got a little. It was a very funny little ask, you know. We have $450. Okay.
Cool.
Park and Rec Department.
They do such great stuff.
Yep. And then for internal use, a new police car, Beautification Commission, Noah's Ark, Animal Shelter. We had $20,000 we put towards this. Well, it's maybe to be spent if we win this grant for improving housing stock. $750 for the police reserve, $1,500 for city employee appreciation, which is our Christmas party, and the fire department needed new cribbing, which I think has something to do with if a vehicle's burning. Anyway, that was
not $10,000. A new crib.
Not a new crib,
man. Yo.
So that was approved. Everyone who is getting something will be notified. And the very last thing was simply the DOT is requiring, they're kind of, I don't want to say clamping down, but getting a little more serious about ADA requirements, American Disability Act, where if you look around town, a lot of our corners have a ramp with a little, what do they call that, truncated dome, the little rumble thing that helps a wheelchair get grip, or it also warns them when they're coming to a street. But not all of them, and we need to really get on top of that. So I think that they're going to come to town, they're going to do an inventory, and then they're going to make us get on it even more.
All right. Well, and we're going to get on it and get out of it. This is Michael Halley. No, he's Michael Halley. I'm James Moore. That's Jason Strong, and we'll be back with more great programming in just a minute. City Business, Fairfield, Iowa, USA, Universe. Which hemisphere is this?